The starship Orion's hand cut through the deep silence of space, its silver hull reflecting the light of 1,000 distant suns. To many on board, the journey was more than just travel. It was history in motion. Humanity had been invited, for the first time, to stand before the Zuri Alliance, a group of alien civilizations so ancient and powerful that Earth's achievements looked small by comparison. Myra stood by the wide observation window, her hands folded tightly. Her eyes traced the planet below, a world covered in glimmering towers and glowing rivers of light. The capital of the Zuri shone like a jewel suspended in darkness. She had never seen anything so vast, so carefully built, and so alive. Behind her, other delegates murmured nervously. Some whispered about what they had heard of the Zuri, tall beings with eyes like liquid crystal, voices that carried strange tones. Others wondered if humans would be accepted, or laughed at, or worse, rejected forever. But Myra said nothing. She knew her role. Though young, she had been chosen not for rank or wealth but for her calmness. Her voice carried clarity, her presence steadiness. In the endless debates of Earth's councils, Myra had been the one to bring silence to the room, the one to untangle storms with a few simple words. Now, that skill would be tested in ways she could hardly imagine. The ship descended slowly into the alien atmosphere. The sight was overwhelming. Silver clouds parted to reveal cities that stretched for hundreds of miles, with bridges of light connecting towers that seemed to scrape the stars. Airships shaped like wings drifted between them, and great spires pulsed with energy. Every detail spoke of a civilization far older and richer than anything on Earth. The delegation filed into the landing chamber. Myra walked behind the lead ambassador, her steps measured, her face steady. She felt her heart beating hard against her ribs, but she forced herself to breathe slowly. She remembered what the trainers had told her: fear is normal. What matters is what you do with it. The doors of the chamber opened, and light poured in. Standing at the edge of the landing platform were the Zuri. Myra had heard descriptions before, but nothing compared to seeing them with her own eyes. The Zuri were tall, their forms slender yet strong. Their skin shimmered faintly as if woven with threads of silver, and their eyes seemed deep, reflecting colors like gemstones shifting in the sun. They wore robes that flowed with patterns of light, symbols that humans could not yet understand. At the center of the group stood the Zuri Chancellor. Taller than the rest, he carried no crown, no weapon, no badge of power, yet his presence was unmistakable. The air around him seemed still, as though even the wind paused to listen. His eyes moved over the humans, calm and unreadable. The human ambassador stepped forward, bowing slightly. His voice was respectful, yet Myra noticed a tremor in it. On behalf of Earth, we thank the Zuri Alliance for granting us this meeting. We come in peace, and with hope for friendship. The Chancellor inclined his head slowly. His reply came in a voice smooth and strange, layered with tones beyond human range. The translator device shaped it into words they could understand. The Alliance welcomes the children of Earth. Long have we watched your rise. Today we shall see what future you seek. The delegation was led into the Great Hall. Myra walked silently, her eyes absorbing every detail. The hall was vast, its ceiling high enough to hold an entire city tower within. Strange lights floated like living stars, and walls curved with patterns that shifted as if alive. The sound of their footsteps echoed faintly, as though the hall itself was listening. Myra stayed close to the balcony edge, drawn to the view. From there, the alien city stretched endlessly, shining in the evening light. For a moment, she forgot her fear and simply breathed it in: the beauty, the scale, the wonder. This was why she had wanted to come. Not only for duty, but to see with her own eyes what lay beyond Earth's small horizon. But even in that moment of awe, Myra felt something else. The Chancellor's gaze had rested on her, if only for a second. It was not curiosity alone, nor judgment. It was something deeper, a silent test, as if he was already measuring her, searching for what lay beneath her calm face. Her hands tightened on the balcony rail. She did not flinch, did not lower her eyes. Instead, she let the moment pass like wind over stone. She was not here to prove her fear. She was here to prove her people's worth. As the council gathered for the opening ceremony, Myra stood quietly among the humans. The Chancellor's words echoed in her mind, "We shall see what future you seek." She knew then that this was not only a negotiation. It was a trial. And somewhere in this vast city, humanity's future would be decided, perhaps not in the council chamber, but in a place no one expected. The night fell on the alien world, and the stars outside glimmered over the balcony. Myra did not know yet how important that balcony would become. But she felt the first threads of fate weaving around her, drawing her toward something greater than she had ever imagined. The welcome ceremony ended with quiet music that drifted like wind through glass. The humans were shown to their quarters inside the council hall, a structure so vast it felt more like a city than a building. Long corridors stretched in every direction, filled with light that shifted with the time of day. Myra walked slowly behind the group, her eyes wandering to the walls. They glimmered faintly, as though they were alive. Every step seemed to echo, and she wondered if the very stone of the place could hear. The others spoke in low voices. Some were relieved that the Chancellor had received them without hostility. Others worried that his words had been too vague. "We shall see what future you seek," he had said. What did it mean? Myra did not join their talk. She felt restless, as if something was pulling her away from the path the others followed. That night, when the others returned to their chambers, Myra could not sleep. The alien world outside called to her. The city lights glowed softly through the window, and the sound of distant whines reached her ears. She stepped into the corridor, her steps light. The hall was quiet, but she noticed an archway half hidden behind a curtain of silver cloth. Something about it felt different. She moved closer and touched the frame. To her surprise, the wall shifted open, revealing a narrow passage lit by a soft blue glow. Curiosity pressed her forward. The passage curved and rose until it opened into a wide balcony. Myra stepped out, and the sight stole her breath. The city stretched before her in endless beauty. Towers glowed like beacons, bridges of light crossed the sky, and rivers shimmered with colors she had never seen on Earth. The night air was cool, carrying scents both sharp and sweet. The stars above were brighter than she had ever imagined. Myra leaned against the railing. Here, away from the noise of the council, she felt small but not weak. She felt like a single point of light in a sea of countless stars, yet even one light had meaning. She did not realize she was no longer alone. A voice spoke from the shadows of the balcony. "It is rare for a human to wander here." Myra turned sharply. A tall figure stepped into the light. It was not the Chancellor, but another Zuri. His robe shimmered with deep green symbols, and his eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the city's lights. His presence was calm, yet there was something sharper hidden beneath it. "Forgive me," Myra said, steadying her voice. "I did not know I was trespassing." "You are not," the Zuri replied. "This place is not forbidden. Few find it, even among my kind." He walked closer, his movements slow and graceful. "You are Myra, are you not? The quiet one among the humans." Her heart beat faster. She had not introduced herself to him, yet he knew her name. "Yes," she said carefully. The alien's gaze lingered on her. "I watched you today. While others bowed and trembled, you stood calm. That is unusual for your kind." Myra met his eyes, though every part of her wanted to look away. "I only did what was needed." The Zuri tilted his head, as though studying her. "Your people are young. You reach for the stars with hands still marked by the soil of your world. Some in the Alliance believe you are not ready. Some believe you are too dangerous. I wish to know what I should believe." His words felt smooth, yet Myra sensed a hidden weight in them. This was no simple talk. It was a test, or perhaps something deeper, a weaving of influence, a kind of persuasion meant to bend her thoughts. She chose her words with care. We are young, yes. But every great race was once young. We do not hide from our struggles. They shape us. The Zari's eyes narrowed, but not in anger. More in curiosity. He stepped closer, his voice lowering. Do you trust your leaders? Do you believe they truly represent what your species is? The question struck her like a blade hidden in silk. She understood now. This was not small talk. This was a trial of loyalty, perhaps even an attempt to turn her against her own people. For a moment, she said nothing. The alien's voice carried a strange pull, as though it wanted to wrap around her thoughts, to guide her answer. She felt the edge of the persuasion, subtle yet strong. But she steadied herself. She remembered the endless meetings on Earth, the arguments, the storms of voices, and how one calm word could clear the air. Yes, she said firmly. Our leaders are not perfect. No one's are. But they come from us, from our struggles, from our hope. I trust them, because they are us. The alien envoy studied her for a long time. Then, slowly, he smiled, not with mockery, but with respect. Interesting. You resist more than I expected. Perhaps your kind is not as fragile as many say. He turned back toward the city lights, his robe glowing faintly in the starlight. This balcony is a place where truth is revealed. Many who stand here show their weakness. You, Myra, show something else. I wonder how far that strength will carry you. Before she could reply, he stepped into the shadows, his form melting back into the hall. She was left alone again, the city stretching before her, silent and endless. Myra gripped the railing, her thoughts racing. She knew now that this was only the beginning. The balcony was no accident. It was a stage, a trial, and she had just taken her first step into a game far larger than she had imagined. The wind stirred, carrying the soft hum of the alien city. Myra did not fear it. She stood tall, her heart steady. Whatever test awaited her, she was ready. The next day began with a golden dawn that painted the alien city in shining colors. Myra stood at the window of her chamber, still thinking about the mysterious envoy she had met on the balcony. His words had been smooth, almost gentle, yet heavy with hidden purpose. He had not asked questions as a friend would. He had pressed, guided, and shaped them, as though he wanted her to step into a trap without realizing it. She wondered if she should tell the ambassador about it, but something held her back. Would they believe her? Or would they dismiss it as a dream, the nerves of a young envoy in a strange world? Myra knew the meeting had been real. She could still hear his voice in her mind, layered with tones that seemed to press against her thoughts. Later that morning, the human delegation was called back to the council hall. The Zari chancellor sat upon a raised platform, surrounded by his advisors. Myra noticed the envoy she had met on the balcony standing among them. He gave no sign of recognition, but his eyes met hers for a brief second, sharp and measuring. The discussions began. The ambassador spoke first, explaining humanity's wish to join the alliance not as servants, not as dependents, but as partners. He described Earth's progress, its struggles, and its potential. The words were strong, but Myra sensed unease among the Zari. They listened, but their faces remained calm, unreadable. Then the envoy stepped forward. His voice filled the hall, deep and smooth, carrying the same strange undertone Myra had felt before. The humans are eager, he said, his gaze sweeping across the chamber. But eagerness alone does not prove worth. We must look deeper. We must know what lies beneath their claims. He turned his eyes to Myra. Perhaps the quiet one can answer. The hall grew silent. Myra felt every gaze fall upon her. The ambassador looked startled, but the chancellor gave a slight nod, allowing it. Myra stepped forward slowly, her heart steady but her mind racing. The envoy's words came like silk, soft yet sharp. You speak of hope and unity. Yet your world is divided. Wars, hunger, corruption, your history is filled with them. Why should the Alliance trust that you are different now? It was an attack, but it was wrapped in reason. Myra felt the weight of the question pressing down on her. The voices of doubt rose inside her mind, but she pushed them aside. She remembered what her teachers had told her: words are not just sounds. They are weapons. And weapons can defend as well as wound. She raised her voice, calm but clear. Yes, our past is full of struggle. But every star you see in the sky was born from fire. Every race here, even the Zuri, once fought to survive. We do not hide from our past. We carry it with us, because it teaches us strength. A murmur rose in the chamber. The envoy's eyes narrowed slightly, but he did not stop. He pressed again, his tone stronger now. Strength? Or recklessness? Your people reached into space before they were ready. You rush forward like children playing with fire. Is that strength or danger? Myra felt the pull in his words again, the way they seemed to sink into her mind. For a moment, doubt flickered. But she caught herself. She thought of Earth, the storms her people had faced, the disasters they had survived, the countless times they had stood back up when everything seemed lost. Our rush is not recklessness, she replied firmly. It is hope. We reached for the stars not because we were ready, but because we refused to stay silent in the dark. Fire can burn, yes. But fire also gives light. And we are that light. The chamber stirred again. Some of the Zuri exchanged glances, their calm masks breaking for the first time. The envoy's voice dropped lower, almost like a whisper that filled the air. You resist well, human. But hope is fragile. Words cannot change the truth. What will you do when the darkness rises again, and your light is swallowed? Myra stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. Then we will light another fire. And another. As many as it takes. Because that is what humans do. We endure. We rise. We fight for tomorrow, even when today tries to break us. The envoy's expression changed. For the first time, his calm face cracked with something like surprise. He did not speak again. The Chancellor raised a hand, and silence filled the hall. His gaze rested on Myra, long and thoughtful. Words are weapons, he said slowly. And today, the human has shown she knows how to use them. The session ended soon after, but Myra's heart still raced. She returned to her chamber, her hands trembling slightly. She had faced the envoy's test and held her ground. Yet she knew this was not the end. The balcony had been the beginning, and the council chamber had only deepened the game. Myra looked out at the city again, the alien towers gleaming in the distance. She knew the envoy would not stop. He would return, perhaps with stronger questions, sharper traps. But she also knew one truth: words could cut, but they could also shield. And if she must fight with words, then she would fight until the very end. The day after the council debate, the humans were given a brief time to rest. The discussions had been heavy, and the atmosphere around the delegation was tense. Some of the ambassadors whispered that they might already have failed. Others argued that the Chancellor's silence meant nothing. No one truly knew how the Zuri judged them. Myra listened quietly, but her mind was elsewhere. She kept thinking about the envoy on the balcony and how he had pressed her in front of the council. His words had been sharp, but they had not broken her. She had stood her ground. That small victory gave her strength, yet it also left her with a warning: the trials were only growing harder. That evening, when the halls were quiet again, Myra returned to the balcony. The alien city stretched out in endless beauty, glowing with colors she still could not name. She leaned against the railing and let the cool air steady her. For a moment, she felt peace. Then she heard the familiar voice. You came back. She turned. The envoy stepped from the shadows, his eyes reflecting the starlight. His presence was calm as before, yet Myra sensed a sharper edge in him now. "I wanted to see the city again," Myra said softly. "It reminds me how small we are, and yet how far we have come." The envoy tilted his head. "You speak with courage. Yesterday, you resisted me before the Chancellor. Many would have bent beneath the weight of my words. But not you." "I only spoke the truth," Myra replied. The envoy's gaze sharpened. "Truth is not enough. Power decides truth. The alliance was not built on words alone, but on strength. What strength does your species have to offer? You have no fleets like the Creel, no ancient wisdom like the Viuri, no vast reach like the Zuri. What is humanity but a fragile flame, waiting to be extinguished?" His words pressed against her, heavy with doubt. But Myra did not step back. Instead, she breathed slowly and thought of Earth. She thought of storms that tore down homes but could not break the spirit of its people. She thought of hunger that had once starved entire lands, yet still they had endured. She thought of endless wars, where blood had been spilled, but hope had risen again and again. Her eyes met his, steady and calm. "We are not fragile," she said. "We have no ancient fleets or endless power. But we have something else. We survive. We learn. We endure when others would fall. That is our strength." The envoy narrowed his eyes. "Endurance? That is not power. That is desperation." Myra shook her head. "No. It is more than desperation. It is the reason we are here at all. Many times, we should have been destroyed by nature, by our own mistakes, by the void of space. But we did not vanish. We kept moving forward, step by step. Even when we had nothing, we found a way. That is the human edge." For the first time, the envoy's calm mask shifted. His voice lost its smooth rhythm. "You truly believe endurance is enough to stand among the stars?" "I do," Myra said firmly. "Because endurance becomes something greater. It becomes hope. And hope can inspire. Hope can rebuild. Hope can turn weakness into strength." The envoy was silent for a long moment. The city's light glimmered between them, and the wind carried a low hum from the towers below. Finally, he spoke, his voice quieter. "Your words are strange. The Zuri have studied humans for centuries, yet we never understood this hope you cling to. To us, survival is duty. To you, it is triumph. Perhaps that is why some fear you." Myra tilted her head. "Fear us?" "Yes," he said softly. "A species that refuses to break is dangerous. Even if small, even if fragile. A flame that never dies may one day become a fire none can control." Myra held his gaze. "Then perhaps the Alliance should not fear us. Perhaps it should stand with us. Together, we could be stronger." The envoy's eyes searched hers for a long time, as if trying to see through her soul. At last, he stepped back into the shadows. "We shall see. The Chancellor watches. And your trial is not yet over." He vanished, leaving Myra once again alone on the balcony. She gripped the railing, her heart racing but steady. She knew she had not defeated him, but she had planted something doubt, perhaps even respect. As the stars shone overhead, Myra whispered to herself, "Endurance is enough. It always has been." That night, she returned to her quarters with a quiet strength in her heart. She knew the envoy would come again, with harder questions, with sharper words. But she also knew her answer would not change. Humans might not have fleets, wisdom, or riches. But they had something no test could take away: the will to rise again. And in that will, Myra knew, was the key to humanity's future among the stars. The council chamber was brighter than before, filled with lines of light that shifted across the walls like flowing rivers. The human delegation entered slowly, their steps echoing on the polished floor. Myra walked behind the ambassador, calm on the outside but alert within. She felt the envoy's eyes even before she saw him. He stood near the chancellor, his presence sharp as always, his expression unreadable. Myra did not look away. Their exchanges on the balcony still lingered in her mind. She knew he would not stop until he had pushed her to the breaking point. The chancellor raised his hand, and silence fell. His voice echoed across the hall, deep and layered with tones the translator reshaped into clear words. "Children of Earth," he said. "You have spoken of peace, of hope, of strength. Yet words are wind. Today, we see what remains when the wind fades." The chamber darkened slightly. A shimmering wall appeared behind the chancellor, glowing like liquid glass. Scenes began to shift within it, images of Earth's history. Myra gasped softly as she saw them: wars, hunger, storms, cities in ruin. The darkest chapters of humanity's story unfolded before the Alliance. The human ambassador stiffened. "This is not fair," he protested. "Every race has scars in its past." The chancellor did not reply. Instead, the envoy stepped forward, his voice smooth but sharp. "These are not scars. These are warnings. Humanity has carried violence into the stars before. Even now, there are weapons in orbit above your own world. You call it defense. Others call it preparation for conquest." The council chamber murmured with alien voices. The weight of judgment pressed heavily. Myra felt her heart race, but she did not step back. She understood now, this was the test. The balcony had been only a prelude. From the beginning, the Zuri had been watching her, measuring her. Every word, every answer, it was all part of their trial. The envoy's gaze fixed on her. "Myra of Earth," he said. "You have spoken boldly of endurance and hope. Then speak now. Why should the Alliance trust that your species will not turn its fire upon them, as it once turned it upon itself?" The hall grew silent. Every eye was on her. Myra stepped forward, her hands steady, her voice clear. "Yes, our history is full of struggle," she began. "We have fought wars, we have spilled blood, and we have made mistakes that nearly destroyed us. But those mistakes did not end us. They taught us. They burned lessons into our hearts that we will never forget." The envoy pressed again, his voice carrying a dangerous softness. "Lessons fade. Power corrupts. How long before humans repeat their past?" Myra shook her head. "We are not blind to that danger. That is why we seek the Alliance, not to gain power, but to be part of something greater. To learn, to grow, to walk a path that is bigger than our own shadows. If you judge us only by our scars, then you will never see the strength that came from surviving them." The Chancellor's eyes glimmered faintly, but he said nothing. The envoy did not stop. He stepped closer, his tone sharper. "And if the Alliance denies you? If the door is closed? Will humans return to their fire and burn alone?" Myra's voice rose, steady and strong. "No. We will still reach for the stars. Because that is who we are. You cannot close the sky to us. You cannot stop us from trying. Deny us if you wish, but one day, you will still see us among you. Because humans do not stop." A ripple moved through the chamber. The envoy's eyes narrowed, but behind them, something else flickered, something close to respect. The Chancellor finally stood. His tall form cast a long shadow across the hall. "This was the trial," he said. "Not of skill, nor of technology, but of spirit. The balcony was no accident. We wished to see if the flame of humanity was weak or if it could endure the winds of doubt. Today, you have shown us your edge." The chamber filled with murmurs again, this time not of doubt but of curiosity, even admiration. The humans looked at one another, hope returning to their faces. Myra bowed her head slightly, her breath steady. The weight of the test had been heavy, but she had not broken. She had faced their doubts and turned them into strength. As the delegation left the chamber, the ambassador whispered to her, his voice full of wonder. You were the key all along. They weren't judging me, they were judging you. Myra did not answer. She only looked back once at the balcony that had started it all, glowing faintly in the alien night. She understood now. The test had never been about titles or ranks. It had been about spirit. And in that spirit, humanity had endured. The council chamber did not empty at once. After the trial, after Myra's words had filled the hall with quiet strength, the Zuri remained seated, whispering among themselves in voices that carried strange tones. The humans waited in silence, not sure if they had passed or failed. Myra stood calm, though her heart still beat hard in her chest. She could feel the envoy's gaze on her, sharp as ever, but something had changed. The doubt in his eyes had lessened. Now there was curiosity, and perhaps even respect. At last, the Chancellor raised his hand. The voices stilled. His presence filled the hall like a mountain standing against the wind. Today, the humans have spoken, he said. They have shown us not perfection, but conviction. Perhaps that is what the stars need, not only strength of fleets, not only wisdom of ages, but the will to rise even from failure. The council stirred. Some nodded, others frowned, but none dismissed his words. The tide was shifting. The Chancellor's gaze turned toward Myra. You, Myra of Earth, stood against doubt without bending. Why did you not falter when others would have? Myra lifted her head. Because I carry the voices of my people. We are not just our leaders or our armies. We are children who dream, workers who build, families who endure. If I falter, I silence them. I will not do that. Her words hung in the air, simple but steady. The silence that followed was not cold, but heavy with thought. The envoy stepped forward then, his robe glowing faintly in the chamber light. His voice was calm, but softer than before. Chancellor, I have tested her with words, with doubt, with shadows from their past. Yet she did not fall. Perhaps the flame of humanity is not as fragile as we believed. The Chancellor studied him, then turned to the council. Then let us decide. Shall Earth walk with us, or remain outside our gates? The chamber grew restless. Voices rose and fell like waves. Some argued that humans were too young, too unpredictable. Others said that their endurance could make them strong allies. For the first time, the debate was not about whether humans should be dismissed, but about whether they might be welcomed. The human ambassador glanced at Myra, his eyes full of gratitude. He had spoken many words, but it was her quiet strength that had shifted the balance. When the council at last grew quiet, the Chancellor spoke again. The Alliance does not accept lightly. But we also do not ignore what is before us. Humanity has shown a fire that refuses to die. We shall not grant full partnership, not yet. But we will open the first door. Earth may enter as observers, to learn and to prove themselves further. Hope lit the faces of the human delegation. It was not victory, not complete acceptance, but it was the beginning. Myra bowed her head. Thank you, Chancellor. We will not waste this chance. The Chancellor gave a slow nod. See that you do not. For the eyes of many worlds will now watch you. As the council session ended, Myra stepped once more onto the balcony outside the hall. The city stretched beneath her, glowing with the light of 1,000 towers. The wind brushed against her face, cool and steady. The envoy joined her quietly. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he said, "You turned the tide today. Even I did not expect it." Myra looked at him. "You tested me again and again." "Why?" His eyes reflected the stars. "Because words can shape fate. I needed to know if humanity's words were empty, or if they carried the weight of truth. Now I see they carry both truth and fire." Myra leaned on the railing. "And what do you see now, when you look at us?" The envoy's voice lowered. "I see a people who may change the balance of the stars. Whether for good or ill, I cannot yet say. But I no longer see only weakness. The city below shimmered with moving lights. Myra felt a quiet pride stir in her chest. Humanity had not entered the alliance by power or wealth, but by something smaller and yet stronger: the will to endure, the courage to hope. The envoy's gaze lingered on her for a moment more. Then he stepped back into the hall, his voice faint. Your trials are not finished. But today, you lit a flame on the balcony that may never go out. Myra remained where she was, watching the stars. She thought of Earth, of its storms and its struggles, of its children and its dreams. The path ahead would not be easy. The doors of the Alliance had only opened a little. Yet even that little was enough. Because humans never stopped at the first step. They always kept walking. The balcony had become Myra's place of quiet strength. Each evening, after the council's long debates, she found herself there, standing above the city of light. The alien towers shone like crystal spires, their reflections dancing across the silver rivers below. For Myra, the balcony was more than stone and railing. It was a reminder that humans now had a place among the stars, however small that place might be. News of Earth's acceptance as an observer had spread quickly across the Alliance. Some worlds celebrated, intrigued by the courage of a young species. Others frowned, whispering warnings that humanity might bring chaos with them. Yet no one ignored them anymore. For the first time, the galaxy spoke the name of Earth with weight. Myra felt the change most when she walked through the halls of the council. Before, the Zuri and the other species had looked past her, as though she was a shadow. Now, their eyes lingered. Some still held doubt, but others carried respect. A few even nodded in greeting. Humanity was no longer invisible. One evening, as Myra leaned on the railing, the envoy appeared beside her once more. His steps were silent, but his presence was steady. For a time, neither spoke. The stars above seemed to hum with quiet energy. At last, the envoy said, "Do you know what they call this place, Myra?" She turned toward him. "The balcony." He gave a slight smile. "Among the Zuri, this is the balcony of first promises. It is where envoys of new worlds first stood, to look upon the heart of the city, and to choose whether to rise or retreat." Myra touched the railing gently. "And how many kept their promises?" The envoy's eyes darkened. "Few. Some bent under the weight of the alliance. Others tried to burn too bright, too fast, and were broken. Only a handful endured." Myra looked out across the city. "Then we must be one of those few. We have no other choice." The envoy studied her. "You speak as though the burden rests only on you." "It rests on all of us," Myra said. "But someone must hold it first. Someone must believe before others can follow." The envoy gave a slow nod, as though her words carried a truth he could not deny. "Then perhaps the balcony chose well this time." In the days that followed, Myra worked beside the ambassador, guiding Earth's voice in the council chambers. They did not command fleets or promise great treasures. Instead, they offered something else: new ideas, new questions, new ways of seeing. Many disagreed, but many listened. The turning point came when a border world cried for help. Pirates had struck their colonies, stealing food and fuel. The council hesitated, each species weighing the cost of action. Some argued that the world was too small to matter. But Myra rose. Her voice was not loud, yet it carried across the chamber. She told them of Earth's long history of helping its own, even when resources were thin. She spoke of villages sharing food in storms, of people who risked their lives for strangers in floods or fires. She asked the council a simple question: if we turn away from the small, what hope will we have when the great trials come? Silence followed her words. The chancellor's eyes narrowed, but he did not dismiss her. One by one, council members spoke, not all in favor, but enough. A fleet was sent. The colony was saved. And though humanity had no ships among that fleet, it was Myra's voice that had moved the decision. Back on the balcony that night, the envoy found her again. His expression was unreadable. "You are dangerous, Myra," he said. She raised a brow. "Because I spoke." "Because you made them act," he replied. "Few have done that so soon. The council does not like to be moved by one voice. But they followed yours." Myra looked at him, calm but steady. "If speaking truth is dangerous, then I accept that danger." For the first time, the envoy's serious face softened. "Perhaps this is what the Alliance needs. A people not afraid to speak when others hesitate." The stars shimmered above them, countless and endless. Myra thought of Earth again, of its storms, its scars, but also its endless will to rise after each fall. The balcony had become a bridge, not only between her and the envoy, but between Earth and the galaxy. In time, the story of humanity's first step into the Alliance would be remembered not for treaties signed or weapons shown, but for a quiet figure who stood on a balcony and spoke with conviction. The balcony of first promises gained a new meaning. Among the Zuri, they whispered that it had been reborn as the balcony of the human flame. And in every corner of the city, lights glowed a little brighter, as if the stars themselves had leaned closer to listen. Myra remained there often, not as a conqueror, not as a leader of armies, but as a voice carrying the strength of her people. And as long as she stood there, the galaxy knew one truth: humanity had arrived. And they would not be silent.